Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to our webinar. This one is on starting an energy efficiency business and also on just things you should know if you are running a business and if you're new to the whole thing. Why don't you go to the next slide, Jason? So Jason Perez is who is going to be giving this webinar. I've known Jason for, I don't know, maybe only 12 years, maybe some more, something like that.
Maybe more than that, yeah.
Maybe 13, 14 years. And yeah, he's a great guy. And I've seen this presentation before. He gave it at AEE World 2 years ago, and it was really, really good. And that's why I brought it here. I thought you guys would like it. And so I'm done talking. Jason, you can introduce yourself if you want, and if you don't want to, well, you should at least say what you do so people, realize you're just not some bum off the street. And then after that, go ahead and get to it.
Yeah, so I do have a slide later on that talks about, I guess, my qualifications for giving this presentation today, and talking about entrepreneurship and starting an energy efficient business. But the short is, I'm Jason Perez. I'm a serial entrepreneur, CEO, founder of a tech company called YARDZ. We'll get into some of my history of my first little business that I started up to the latest that I'm running today. So I'm excited to go through this. Thank you again, John, for inviting me. This is one of the subjects that I really get passionate about, and we have a lot of fun talking about, to be honest with you. I think you and I try to bring some sobering wisdom around it versus all the glam. So I will jump right in. I know we had an introductory slide, but I really wanted to show this because I think this is the way everybody sees the stories of entrepreneurship, right? They see this line that's in between either massive success, right? The Elon Musk and Bezos and Zuckerbergs of the world, or the ones that just absolutely tank, crash, burn, and it never happens. But what I can tell you is that thin orange line right there in the middle actually is bigger, and the things on the top and bottom are much smaller when we talk about you starting a company and what it's going to look like and where you're going to end up, right? The stories are not bipolar there. So here's a really important quote. And you can take this wisdom if you don't want to listen to the rest of the presentation, that's okay. But watch your thoughts. They become your words. Watch your words. They become your actions. Your actions become your habits. Watch your habits. They become your character, and your character, it becomes your destiny. So when it comes to life, right, at least Lao Tzu thought there's a formula here. You got to think about it. You got to talk about it. You got to put actions about it. You got to create habits about it. You got to make your character where you want to be. Because if you do those steps, right, then it'll become your destiny. And business is no different. If you're willing to think a certain way, talk a certain way, put the actions in place, create the right habits, the character, then you're going to hit that destiny. However, what I find when I talk to entrepreneurs, when I see people that are trying to start a business, whether energy efficiency business or consulting or whatever it might be, tech, etc., it looks a little bit more like this, right? Hold my beer and watch this, because there's a formula, and if you don't follow the formula, pretty much you're this guy, right? So as we go through today, I have a couple goals, all right? What I want and what everybody wants to think about is, hey, business, life on the left, right? All the unexpected realities. And where we live when we're starting a business, for the most part, is on the right side there, right? Expected realities. Our dreams and preconceptions, right? These are all the dots, and you'll see I try to bring as many graphs and charts into this. A lot of them are self-made, because we probably have a lot of engineers here that are trying to start a company. But what we actually have to discuss are these red dots, right? So you might be living in the black, and for those that know financial statements, we're trying to bring you into the reality of the red. What are the losses? What are the difficulties? And hopefully we can take these unexpected realities and put them into your expected realities, so that they're aligned, you have no surprises, you're ready for them, you can handle them better, and you're ready to take on the challenge of starting a company, all right? And hopefully, as Jocko Willink says, when the bad times happen, you say, good, right? Because this is part of me starting a business, and it's good. All right, so some of you probably know the baseball. I'm a big baseball fan. And there's a great movie, Field of Dreams, and they say, if you build it, they will come. And that's a preconception, right? And what will come? Well, the money's going to come, right? I'm going to own my own company. I'm going to have money. I'm going to have more time. I'm going to have a bunch of employees. I'm going to be my own boss, right? I'm going to get rid of all the drama because I'm going to hire and fire who I want. It's all going to be good. I'm going to, I've done this for big corporations, so I already know what I'm doing. I've managed big teams. I've done big contracts, and I'm going to be a superhero. However, if you build it, they will come. Not the preconceptions, the reality. Because you're going to spend a lot more money than you think, and your pockets will probably be a lot more empty than you think. Your time, it's not going to be more. It's going to disappear. It's going to be less. And the idea of you being your own boss, you're going to have every client, every customer that ever comes in contact with you as your boss, including, even though you're the boss, you're going to have employees that start controlling some of your decisions in your life and things, because running a company is not as easy as just being your own boss. And with these employees, right, the support that you thought you're going to get, you're going to be probably changing a lot of diapers. You're going to be supporting them. You're going to be nurturing them, and you're probably going to get some poo in your hands, right? The idea of, I've done this for a big company, you've done a fraction of what it takes at a big company to build a business. And it just is what it is. I just want to be transparent. You probably have a great foundation. You probably are really good at certain things, but we all have gaps. I still have gaps. John still has gaps, right? There are things that we have as weaknesses. And so don't think that because I was part of a big building, right, on one floor, that I built that building, right? You can probably build a pretty good doghouse today. And then last, being a hero, like leadership's not easy. And the second you think you're a hero, you're going to get humbled, you're going to be put to your knees, and you're going to have to figure out a way to get out of there. So why me? Why Jason Perez? Well, I graduated with honors and a double major, top of my class, triple minor, received the Peace Foundation Award, which was kind of a Nobel Peace Prize at the university. I was a presenter, panelist at a Third World Conference. I'm lead AP, IPP, HCC. I can throw a baseball 94 miles an hour. I like the color black, and I have a superhuman sense of smell, and I can probably choke out or break the limb through, studying jujitsu for many years. Most of the people on this webinar, right, in less than 15 seconds. I've traveled, climbed mountains, right, skydived, a lot of adventures, been all over the world. Let me tell you, none of that matters. None of it. Absolutely none of that matters, right? Doesn't matter where I went to school. Doesn't matter all the awards I had in the past. These things are great pieces. They're foundational pieces that I can bring to the company. But when it comes to company success, when it comes to being an entrepreneur, when it comes to talking today, here's what really matters, right? When I was 8 years old, I started a dog pooping business, and it failed miserably. And what I found out by that was that if I don't align my passion, right, with the business, I'm not going to succeed. The reality is I didn't want to pick up poop, but I knew I could make money doing it. And at the end of the day, I didn't do the thing that I didn't want to do, right? So at 17 years old, I started a dance and choreography business, and that went exceptionally well. I actually made so much money that I graduated with no debt. I paid off all my school before I even graduated through that company. I chose economics as one of my first majors. Again, foundational to me understanding financials, understanding the economy, understanding things like that. But it's not why I succeeded. It's just a piece of the puzzle. I was medically declined from the Marine Corps, right? That was another failure in my life, and I learned resilience. You made a plan, I had everything around me that I thought was a perfect formula to get there, and something outside of my control led me to be in decline. At 23, I worked for a big GC, saved up a ton of money, and I decided to start my first tech startup. Failed miserably. I burned through cash. I had a bad business partner, and at 25 years old, I learned a lot of good lessons from that experience. After there, I went to go work for the corporate world. I ran one of the largest and highest profile projects for them. I built a new market and a division for them, which gave me a lot of entrepreneurial experience. And then I started a consulting company at 29 years old that was exceptionally successful, was a cash cow. And that's actually the way that John and I met through that company. And then at the age of 38, I started a construction tech startup that now I'm a CEO of. So that gives you a little history of me. And we're going to talk through some stories about all that today. Now, what's the holy trinity of business? There's three things, right? On a project, you have schedule, you have cost, and you have quality. In business, you have money, you have time, and you have the product. So we're going to go through these three things and hopefully give some stories around them and help drive some information around each one of them and give you some tools on how to manage these and how to think about them. And again, our job here today is to align some of the preconceptions and realities into where you're going to be in the future and how they're going to affect you and how you think about them. So money. Let's go through some facts and fiction. Here are some of the lies that you hear when you're going to start a company. People you know and say they will hire you. Meaning, you know some people now, they say, man, if you started a company, I'd hire you tomorrow. If you started this, I'll give you a contract. If you get this qualification, I'd hire you. If you got 8A, if you got, minority business, if you got women-owned business, if you did this, if you did that, I'm going to hire you. Money makes problems go away. Money will make me happy, and I will manage the money in the company different than my personal life. And I'm here to tell you that first, you need money, period. It's going to go faster than you think. 3, it will come slower than you think, meaning you're going to burn it faster, you're going to make it slower. You must keep good books to make good decisions. Every decision leads to money, either more or less of it. It is the fuel, the absolute oxygen of your company. Money, money, money. Nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants it, but it is the fuel. It is paramount. And then profits are only made by 2 ways. Either you're reducing expenses or you're increasing revenue. That's it. So let's go through another chart here for the engineers. We've got on left problems and pain, right? And it goes down. And then we have money that's going to the right. And the preconception is, hey, the more problems or the more money you have, the less problems you have, the less pain you have. Here's the reality of what it looks like. As you make more money as a company, as you grow, as you personally get more money, the problems and pain do not go away. The reality is they get bigger. And then to be honest with you, the problems kind of split when you hit the top there, when you hit the peak. And the reason I put that is the more employees you have, the more problems you're going to have, right? The more money you have, the more taxes issues, the more lawsuits, the more everything you can think of. What money does buy you is the ability to pay experts to make the pain go away, to have to deal with it less, all right? So let's just start with that. As you start, as you make more money, as your company grows, as you hire employees in different states, as you do different things, the problems do not get easier, okay? It's going to get harder. But if you can get to that peak and you make enough money, you're going to be able to pay for the right people to make the pain go away. All right. So fuel, money, everybody should know this, right? What is fuel? What's energy? Well, it's a material used to produce heat or power in burning, by burning. Heat or power, right? Heat or power. What fuels do we use in the energy world? Well, we've got fossil fuels and alternative fuels and different ways of creating energy. Same thing when it comes to your company. So if you're not listening and this is a part where you just jumped in, this is where you talk about how do I fuel my company, all right? And there's different ways of doing that. And I talked a little bit about that when I was talking about the chart of the different companies in my timeline. So traditional ways, fossil fuels, right? We've got cash, which we'll say is coal, traditional credit, going out, getting loans, whether SBA, whether they're from banks, and then oil, right? Petroleum, we'll call that family, asking your family to pitch in some money to fund some things, so on and so forth. On the other side, here's some other fields that I really want you to think about, because you're going to hire employees, right? And you're not going to have the ability to have benefits when you first start. You're not going to have the ability to pay them the salary that you want to pay them. You're not going to have the ability to do all those things. This alternative energy is probably one of the most important energies here. It's not the most important, but one of the most important. So equity becomes a fuel. You find a good partner, you find somebody that you're willing to share the business with, that's an option. I'm not telling you it's a good option, but it's an option. Bonuses. Hey, I'm going to pay you a low salary, but I'm not going to be able to pay you more money unless we're profitable, right? But if we make a lot of money, you're going to make a lot of money. Benefits, again, maybe that's one of those alternative energies later. Social networks, strategic partnerships, investors. All these things are options on how you fuel your company. You've got to figure that out. However, I will tell you, if I was to focus on anything in here, I would say special fuels might be the most important. Because at the end of the day, when I started my first company, my second company, my third company, the most important thing was creating an environment, creating a place that people believed in. It was my leadership that allowed us to hire people that believed that we would make it to where we needed to make it to, so that one day they would get the payout, one day they would get the bonus, one day they would get what they need. Your leadership will keep people at the company, and poor leadership will lead them away from your company. And then lastly, we'll call this last special fuel magic. Prayer, meditation, faith, still very important, still part of all this. All right. So
Hey, Jason,
just keep in mind.
Before,
Yep.
can you go back one slide?
Yes, sir.
I think this is actually really important, the special fuels here. I think what it is, so, it's easy just to say leadership. Well, what is that? Does that mean you act a certain way or you follow these procedures? And it's not that. And actually, I think the leadership and the prayer, meditation, faith, they all fit together. What it is you are so single-minded that we are going to make it no matter what, that everyone believes in you and they will follow you because they know that you will succeed, and you must succeed. That is what it's all about. That is what it's all about. It's not just leaders do this, that is not it. But you want to comment on that before you move on?
No, I think you nailed it. It's truly, people think that if they do X, Y, Z, that makes them a leader, right? Those are components of a leader, right? Just like working out is part of being an athlete, but you're not an athlete because you work out.
That's
right? So just keep those things in perspective.
Yeah. So it's all about when you own a business, not so much it owns you, but you become it, especially in the beginning, and that you become a force of nature, and that is what propels you forward. But it also is what makes people want to follow you and be with you on your adventure.
Yeah, I mean it alchemy, right? It's the ability, in the old medieval days, it was the ability to take something and make it into gold, right? It was this universal elixir everybody was looking for. Can you take metal and make it into gold? And the reality is your leadership will take people. It'll take people that just look normal, that just look common or feel common and feel normal, and you can inspire them to do extraordinary things. You can do that.
Yep.
Right?
Sorry for interrupting, but I just thought that was
fantastic.
Really underlined.
Yeah. Okay. So, we don't need to dig too deep in here, but one size does not fit all, right? So as you ask yourself these questions, what type of company am I starting? If it's a tech company, I might want to raise, right? High capital intensive. If it's a consulting company, I don't need to raise money. I can probably just moonlight until I make enough money, right? What season in life? Do I have kids? Am I single, right? What's your financial situation? Do you have a bunch of, money in the bank? Do you not? And then what's your personality? Different companies require different risks. So for me, right, my first day or my first business, I had a day job until I made enough money that the money justified it. My second tech startup, I spent way too much money, ran out of my fuel reserves. My second company, I had my first contract before starting, and my wife worked. So I made, I think, $36,000 my first year, $55,000 my next year, and then we hit a 7-figure contract, right? I mean, I didn't make any money until my third year. And then after that, employees got paid extra high wages. We had big bonuses. And again, it was a cash cow. And then my third company, I had a lot of reserves because I exited my second company. I did use some investors to diversify my risk in the company. I used equity exchange for low wages for employees. And I used a lot of alchemy, a lot of leadership, right? I got a lot of free work out of people. It was something that really, really helped. All right, so story time. Let's talk about a couple things. Deal one, the bad partner. All right, this is about money. Every relationship has an expiration. So as you go out there and you create strategic partnerships, John actually knows his partner. I put a relationship together with a partner, and I was giving them 35% of my revenue because they were getting contracts through relationships and all that type of stuff. I mean, they were a fantastic partner, but over time, they decided they wanted more than 35%. And what I found was, although they were great for building out my initial company and then doing these sales kind of leadership roles, it wasn't a healthy environment. They actually didn't have the same ethics as I did. They had a lot of leadership issues. And at the end of the day, it was great for that season, right? So keep that in mind. Just because you make a decision today doesn't mean it has to be, the decision that you keep with forever. But partnerships can be structured where, hey, for the first 2 years, let's do it this way. And then let's be transparent. We don't need to do it after that. And that's okay. Deal two, the killer COVID. So when I started a tech company, went out, we actually had a bunch of investors, our advisors, customers. We had a bunch of money raised. And sure enough, we signed a contract actually with a Fortune 500 company for distribution. I mean, this is before we even had revenue. All this stuff happened. And that was like February 28th, I think, or February 25th of 2020. A week later, COVID literally, stock market, or 2 weeks later, stock market crashes, everything goes away. You cannot control everything, all right? You just can't. You can't control catastrophe. But what you got to figure out is, what am I going to do when those times approach? Do I have cash reserves to deal with those situations? Can I pivot? What can I do? Who do I have in my team, around me, surrounding me to get me through those catastrophes? Money mattered there. And then another one, counting your eggs before they hatch, right? It's not closed until it's signed. In 2022, we actually had a multi-million-dollar deal with another Fortune 500 company. We actually raised a couple dollars and built some stuff ahead of time for them. We had redline, we signed the contracts, so on and so forth. And here's the thing, this is the lesson out of this story. We spent all this money, redline, signed our side. They said, we're going to sign it, we'll have it back to you in a week. 2 months later, they came back and they said, we decided to build it ourselves, right? So I hear all the time with entrepreneurs, hey, I'm going to get this contract. They said they're going to hire me. They said they're going to do this. I would not count any dollar until you have a signed contract and the check's in the bank, all right? I know you hear that all the time, but this is the truth. And John's experienced it. I've experienced it. Just about every entrepreneur out there has experienced it. So what's the game plan around money? Start with a good reserve, or at least a flow of fuel, meaning you have a day job or something, right? That can keep money coming in. Decide how much fuel you want to use and write it down before you do it. How much money do you want to spend starting this company? Don't spend it until you have it, personally and professionally. I'll tell you right now, if you're not managing your personal life well with money, you are not going to manage your company life well with money. It just is what it is. Always know your fuel, know what's in the tank, keep good books. Look at diverse fuels for your company. Strategic partnerships, I think, are key. Just remember that sometimes there's expiration for those. Only borrow as a last resort when you know you have the means to pay it back, and not just because you ran out of money, right? Borrowing money because you ran out of money doesn't mean you're going to create money. And don't ignore the unquantifiable currencies. What that means is don't ignore the leadership requirements, your meditation, your prayer, your support of your family. Those things are important. All right, we're going to kind of fly through this next one. Time. So remember, triangle, right? Time, it was the next one. Facts and fictions. You can live a balanced life. That's a lie. Anybody that says self-help books and all that stuff, how to live a balanced life, get a balanced life, oh, I'm just balancing life, I don't want to hear it. I don't believe in it. You will control your time. Another lie. As you grow, it will require less of your time. Another lie. Okay? Until you get to the point where you're on a yacht, it's going to continue to consume more of your time all the way through. So, time, here's the facts 1, 2, and 3. It's not a renewable energy. You cannot make more of it. Time just keeps on burning. Okay? You can make more money, you can't make more time. You will have more things to do with less people. That means you will burn time. And then because of fact number 1 and 3, you will have less of it, right? All right. So, balanced life, I told you, I don't believe in it. I try not to preach to it. When I sit on advisory boards for other companies, when I'm sitting with entrepreneurs, mentoring them, I tell them all the time, don't try to live a balanced life. You just can't. And that's because it looks like this. A balanced life is not a teeter-totter where you have two things, you balance it like a scale each side, and you can get it perfectly balanced. Our lives, this only shows 6 things. The reality is our lives are filled with 8, 10, 12, 20 different things that we're constantly trying to balance. And when we try to balance, you'll see this little dot moves. And I'm focusing on work because I'm starting a company. But what you notice is the closer I get to work, the further I just got away from family and health and spiritual, right? And I go, okay, well, I guess what I really need to do is go back because my family's starting to suffer. I need to spend time with my kids, my wife, I need to do that. But then I realize, man, my work's starting to suffer. So I go, well, I'm not going to go so far this time, right? I'm going to go a little bit less. I'm going to work a little bit less, spend a little bit more time with family, not get so far. I'm getting a little more balance, right? But my family starts feeling neglected, so I don't go so far the other way. I'm getting closer to that center. I'm getting more balance. This is good. But what happens is I realize, man, I'm drained emotionally, spiritually. I'm just not spending the time that I need to for myself, right? So I go to the spiritual route, which didn't get me any closer to my family and work. It actually took more of my time away. Then I finally realized I haven't been in the gym in 3 months. I put on 15, 20 pounds. I'm losing my hair. It's grayed out. This is not good, right? And that just takes you further away from work. And your last result is, I got to be committed. If I'm going to build this thing, I'm going all the way. And what you find here is I never got to my friends. I never got to my hobbies. All these things suffered because it's impossible. You cannot live a balanced life. So here's my recommendation, right? What's the solution? I've got 2 things to say. 1, build guardrails that are non-negotiables. For me, family is paramount. They're always my priority, no matter what, period. Okay? That is one of my guardrails. No matter where I'm at in the world, where I'm traveling, if I hear that my family needs me, I will jump on a flight. I don't care. It's the biggest deal in the world. They are paramount. They are priority. Now, does that mean I'm spending most of my time with my family? It doesn't mean that. Do I spend a good amount of time with my family? I do, right? I feel very comfortable. My wife feels comfortable with it. My kids feel comfortable. But that doesn't mean that it's perfect, right? But what I can tell you is they know they're a priority because no matter what happens in my life, I will be there. And 2, the other solution is be the best you. When you're at the gym, go to the gym. When you're meditating or going to church or Bible study or you're spending time with your hobby, be in your hobby. Okay? Be with your family. Put down your phone. If you're your best you with your kids for 30 minutes, that's better than an hour and a half, 2 hours while you're looking at your phone. Okay? Make quality time decisions. okay? Not quantity time decisions. So keep in mind that business is no different than life. I put 6 things there for life, but the reality is when you start a business, you're gonna have sales, employees, partnerships, administrative things that you need to do, financials you gotta focus on, strategic planning you gotta focus on. There's only 6 here. The reality is there's 8, 10, 20 things that you're gonna have to focus on. You're not gonna be able to balance this, okay? But what you need to do is put some guardrails around them, right? And as we mentioned, make quality time when you're in each one of these things, all right? A little formula that I like to use personally, especially when you're starting a company, is this little routine. Spend time in sales daily, right? And make it quality. If it's an hour, if it's 2 hours, whatever it is, focus on new opportunities, new customers, right? How do I get new revenue? Because again, without fuel, without energy, the lights turn off. Doesn't matter whether you're an energy efficiency company or anything else, you have no money, you have no energy, the lights go off. Sales, first thing, daily. Next, invest on a weekly basis into your team and your partnerships. Again, these people, they will work for less money. And I'm not telling you to this isn't slave labor. This is about making sure that they believe in the vision. This is making sure that, because you're not going to have a lot of money when you start out, right? When you first hire your employee, you're not going to be able to pay him what you want. I was very fortunate that I got a huge contract and gave my first employee a 50% raise. And then everybody after I gave 50% raises. But none of them had benefits or 401ks. So my currency to them was just salary and bonuses at the end of the year. And they made more money than, 50% more money than they did before they came to that company. So outside of the money side, you have to invest in them on the leadership side weekly. Ask them how they're doing, what's going on in their life, any projects, do they need help with their work? How are their relationships with other employees in the company, right? Same with your partners. Your partners are employees, right? John and I did several contracts together, and he was one of my partners, and I looked at him completely as an important integral part of my company, period. And I had to invest my time into that relationship. Customer nurturing, same idea, weekly basis, right? That's part of that sales side too. It's nurturing them. Financial health, you got to be closing out your books monthly. You got to know where your cash is. You got to know whether you're going to make your bills months in advance, not days after, okay? Financial health, easily closing your books once a month is probably one of the most important things you can do. And then strategic planning on a quarterly basis through advisors, and we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so story time around money. So as I talked about it, and I'll give you an example. There was one time I was actually, I live in the East Coast, and I went out to the West Coast for a project. And I remember my wife called me and she said, look, I'm exhausted, I can't do this. And I had a whole week plan of things that I was going to be doing that week. And I call it the supper bell rule, right? So if you guys have ever been on a farm, seen, farm stuff, they ring that little triangle bell and everybody comes in. Doesn't matter what you're doing, they're coming in to eat. And that's kind of what I call this rule, right? If my family ever calls, I've got the supper bell rule. They ring the bell and I come home. Doesn't matter what it is. And I've done it multiple times. 2, lifestyle sacrifices. All right. You talk about time. In order to spend time with my family, in order to spend time and balance some of that out, as they say, right? Or most people will say, in order for me to make sure that I had quality time with them, we actually lived at an RV for over a year. All right, we were back and forth traveling across the country. My son learned how to walk in an RV. I had 2 dogs. It was not comfortable. It was a difficult lifestyle. It wasn't glamorous like you see on YouTube, but you know what? That's what it took to build a company, and it was worth it. Example 3, vision and focus. I talk about this all the time. You can't paint a mountain through a telescope. You got to stay on your mission. You got to stay on focus. I mean, on your vision, and then focus on the small things that will get you there. okay? If you look through a telescope and you're looking at little bushes and you want to paint an entire mountain, it's not going to happen. However, you say, hey, here are the 3 things I need to do in the next 3 months, right? Or in the next month in order to get there. Now you're taking small pieces, right? Not detailed, but small pieces to get there. So focus is, I'm going to find 3 salespeople or 3 new customers. But the vision is we're building a energy efficient company and we're going to do it the best and we're going to do it this way, right? So just keep in mind, being in the details of everything, you're going to have imperfections. When you paint a mountain, it can have a lot of imperfections because when you step really far back, nobody sees the actual bush. It just looks like a beautiful landscape. So stay out of the weeds, okay? All right, game plan. Be prepared not to live a normal life, period. Right? When people are, oh, I'm on the golf course, oh, I'm doing this, I'm on vacation. You see the photos of people at the Bahamas and all that stuff. That's probably not going to be your life as you initially start to build your company. It just isn't, right? The idea of being at every single event, it's not going to happen. Be prepared or prepare your family for the same thing. Before you start it, you need to know that they are in it with you and they understand, I'm not going to be home all the time. I'm going to have late nights. Our money, we might not be able to buy all the things we want. We might not be going on 4 vacations a year anymore. We might not. It's a group decision. Build guardrails that are non-negotiable. Keep them a priority. Write them down. Make them your priority. Be the best in the moment. Focus on sales daily. Know the difference between vision and focus, and take 90-day sprints. Those quarterly strategic planning, I'll get into more, they're paramount to your success. All right, product. Here's some product stuff. Focus on the solution. The way you do this, focus on the solution is one of the lies that you hear all the time. Hey, you're building something great. Focus on that great thing that you're building and all the great stuff, The way you do it is the right way. And the reality is the way you do it is probably not the right way. The way people will buy something is the right way. Every project is the same. That's another lie. And I have templates, so I can hire anybody. And they're just going to do the same template as me, and we're going to end up with the same result every time. The reality is the problem must drive the solution. The problem must be scalable. The product must be scalable. The product must be flexible. The product is the people, and the people, the product, and the people will be your biggest stress. Okay. So I know you were talking about energy efficiency. Some of you guys might be going about it differently. Maybe you're not doing consultancy. Maybe you're creating an energy efficiency product. Maybe you're creating software. Maybe you're creating something to manage it, right? The reality is, if you don't understand the problem, right? Why does it need to be built in the first place? And you're not close to that problem, you're never going to get to the solution, because all you're doing is projecting your own thoughts, your own solution into something and into a market that's yet to be tested. And so we can talk about that more later. All right, so what's a product? It's a thing or a person that is the result of an action or a process. Thing, person, result, action, process. So 4 critical steps to drive action and process. Have a clear and concise mission, right? That means know what you want to be, right? We want at YARDZ to be the absolute best tech experience, period. Period. We don't want anybody to have a better tech experience than what they have when they come to YARDZ and they start using our platform. That's our mission. We talk about it all the time, right? We have other little mottos and things, but that's our mission. You must lead that mission. Nobody else is going to do it. We talked about that leadership quality over and over and over again. It is so important because it's only going to get diluted over time. It's like playing telephone. You start on one side, somebody says something. By the time it gets to the end, your mission is so diluted, it's not happening. So you've got to lead it, and you got to lead it at such a concentrated fashion that it is indoctrinated all the way through the company. Review that mission regularly as a team, and then remove any non-believers quickly, okay? So as I talk about product and people, again, I keep on mentioning in that last slide, the product is people and the people is the product. This is all about that, right? Your team has to believe in the mission, all right? Your people also include the support team, and a lot of people don't think about this, but your support team are your attorneys, your CPAs, your bookkeeper, whoever it is that's involved, your partners. You have a support team around you that you're going to be paying, and they've got to believe in all the same things that you do and where you're taking your company. And then last, the advisors, and that is paramount. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, product, the team. Company is not a charity. I see this all the time. Oh, well, you know, if I fire them, they got a family, this and the other. Look, great. I get it. But there are charities for that. So, you know, the best way to help people, make a lot of money and then give a lot of money to charities that are very effective at helping people. Because giving people a job that are not performing a job are only going to lead to you not making money, and sooner or later you not having a company, and sooner or later nobody having a job. So the best way is to run a company like a company. Early team members should be believers in the mission. You got to find their motivation, you got to give them purpose, and you got to allow them to have true impact in the company. There's an 80-20 rule that applies to the team's production. Okay, if there's any gardeners out there, this is the way it works, right? A lot of times they'll say, you know, 20% of your team will produce 80% of production. Okay, and the other 80% produce 20%. Some of the best and early team members don't even work for you, and that goes back to this partnership concept. Okay, like partners are so important. If you can leverage partners early on and contract people, and you're a one-man team contracting other people to do work, that's fantastic. You keep low overhead, and you're only hiring them when you have contracts that come in the first place until you have enough money to fund your own people. All right, so here's a little diagram to help you understand the type of people and what you should be paying them. We got high producers, low producers, we got non-critical and critical people. Think of critical people as people that are absolutely critical to your mission, to your product. Again, if they're writing reports, if they're building tech, whatever they're doing, that's critical. Non-critical could be, someone that's easier to replace. I'm not saying they're not important, but what I'm telling you is they're not critical in that you can replace them a lot easier to your business. So if they're a high producer, I believe in overcompensating them, giving them big bonuses, giving them big salaries. When you get there, keep them. It is so much more expensive to hire somebody new and train them and get them on than it is to retain somebody that believes in your mission and produces high. Low producers, look, if they're not critical, don't pay them a lot of money. It's that easy, right? They're the piece that they bring to the pie. You only have so much money. You got to decide, where am I going to spend the money, right? In a low producer or high producer. And if you can shift that to high producers, you're going to get 80% of the work out of them. Okay. And then critical and low producer, that should never exist in your company, ever. If they're critical to your company and they're a low producer, you got to fire them. You got to get rid of them quick. All right. So product, the support. These people are not just expenses. Everybody looks like, oh, I don't want to hire a CPA. Oh, I don't want to hire an attorney. Listen, they're not expenses. They have measurable ROIs. They save you money from taxes, save you money from lawsuits. They should be part of your planning process. These people will help you. They're going to take heartache away. And again, that problems and more money diagram that I had earlier, they're the ones that help the pain go away. And they'll help the pain never show up if you use them correctly. And then lastly, the advisors. This is the single most important advice I can give you, right? It's build an advisory board. I meet with mine quarterly. We don't miss, okay? Even today, before I even started this company, I got together with an advisory board. So let me help you understand what that looks like. One, it should parallel a C-suite. You should have somebody that's good at finances, good at sales, has a CEO mindset, has a COO mindset, right? If you're building tech, a CTO. They should mirror a C-suite, right? They should have done it before. And I don't mean people at big companies. They should have built something from nothing before. You've got to find people that have done this, because people that have big companies, they think like big companies. People that are entrepreneurs, they think like entrepreneurs. They got to be honest, and they can't be afraid of hurting your feelings. Okay? They got to be vested in the company's success without compromising your success. They should meet quarterly, and they should set a focus. Remember, vision and focus, a focus for the next 90 days. What are we going to accomplish? We're going to accomplish these 3 goals, right? Make it bite-sized. And then when you show up the next 90 days, it should hold you accountable to it. So let's talk about Storytime product. Example 1. Here's the thing about people, okay? This is one of my stories, and this is true. I had a project, really big healthcare project. It was like $70 million project. And these are the type of problems you deal with people. We had one of our subcontractors on the roof actually using cups to go to the bathroom and leaving them on the roof by the air handlers. It was a smelly situation in the hospital, and it was a smelly situation for our team. These stories will happen. Friendly lawsuit. I hired one of my really, really good friends halfway through my last company. He made 3 times the money that he ever did. The next year, he decided he didn't want to work much, and he didn't make much money. And sure enough, he decided that was my fault, even though we had contracts in place and everything. So even your friends, when money involved, you'll see, friends are hard to get, just like money, but they're quick to disappear when money's involved. And then last, I like to call this one caught with your pants down. In my tech company today, we actually had an employee, he was doing an onboarding for us. And in the middle, apparently he had to go get a cup of water. And so he decided he was going to get up from his desk and walk over to his kitchen to go get some water. But what he failed to do was turn off the camera. And sure enough, there he was walking around with his boxers in his apartment. I mean, these are real things that happen in real companies, right? These are all stories that have happened to me, and I have probably another 2 dozen more that I can tell you. People are so important. They will cause every issue in your company, and they can resolve every issue in your company. Surrounding yourself with the right ones are going to be good. The wrong ones will be bad. So let's talk about a game plan on this. Build an advisory board. Do not lose high productive or quality employees. Overpay good employees. Get rid of cancerous employees. Do employee reviews once a month. Mix social with work, right? Build the social equity in your company. Lead them. Hire CPAs, bookkeepers, and attorneys to protect your money. Find partners to supplement your team and workload. And build an advisory board, build an advisory board, build an advisory board. Here's some final truths, and I'll give you a story. Know your mission. An advisory board is essential. Take 90-day sprints. Keep clean books. Keep your family priority. Don't lose quality employees. If anything, this 6 things, I can summarize the entire presentation in. These 6 things, okay? Take a screenshot. If you can do this in a meaningful way, it's going to matter. Now, here's the last question I'm going to do with the story. The story of a fisherman and a guy on vacation. He's a big, rich guy. He retired. He's got millions and tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. And every morning he walks on vacation on the beach, and he sees this fisherman every morning for 2 weeks, pull out 2-3 fish and leaves the beach. So on the last day, he goes over to the fisherman. He's like, man, you're a really good fisherman. You catch 2-3 fish every morning in like 10 minutes. Then you leave. Why do you leave? He's like, well, that's all I need. And he said, well, listen, you should catch more fish. And he goes, why? Well, if you catch more fish, you can buy a second fishing pole. You can catch twice as many fish. He's like, well, why do I want to do that? Well, if you do that, then maybe you can buy a boat and you go out and catch even more fish. And he goes, why would I want to do that? Well, then you can fill it up with, people, and you can buy a second boat, and you can start to employ people, and you can have a whole fleet. Why would I want to do that? Well, if you do all that, you'll make so much money that you'll be able to just sit around all day, hang out with your family, and enjoy life eating fish. And he goes, what do you think I'm doing today? So keep in mind that the journey is hard, and you got to realize what your end goal is going to be. And whether you want to complicate your life and be the guy that retired on the beach, or whether you want to be the fisherman, it's not bad either way. They might end up in the same spot. Just something to think about.
Is that it?
That's it, John.
That's your ending? All right.
Yes, sir.
That was really good. Thank you very much. That was really good. Before we go on to the webinars that are upcoming, I'll just throw in a couple things. For you in the energy efficiency business in the United States, one thing to be aware of as a business owner, and it really helped me a lot, and that is the 179D tax credit. So if you have a consulting company like I did, energy efficiency, you do energy audits, and or maybe you do design of audits or whatever. If you do this work for a nonprofit, which would be a school district or maybe for a government building or something like that, someone that doesn't pay taxes, then you can get this. I don't remember what the number was. It used to be $1.80 a square foot, and I think it might be up to $4 now. But let's pretend it's $1. Let's pretend it's $2 to keep it the math simple. 100,000 square foot house, or square foot building, $2 per square foot. That's $200,000 of tax credit that you can get. Okay, and so what does that mean? Well, that's, assuming you're making money, that's you're going to pay 50% taxes. That's worth $100,000. And what do you charge to do that audit? I don't know, 100,000 square feet. Let's say it's a school. You might charge $10,000, and you're going to get $100,000 in tax benefit. Okay, so there's a big money in the 179D if you're going to be doing consulting in the U.S. So be mindful of that. If you're interested in that stuff, just look up 179D energy audit tax credit or whatever. You'll find some companies that do that. Or you can email me and I'll tell you of a great company that I refer people to. Okay, the second thing is on employees. Jason mentioned this. It's really important to fire them sooner than later. If you think they're not really working out, they're probably not working out. And what they're going to do is in 2 or 3 months from now, they're going to screw up worse. And then they're going to screw up worse. And you're going to lose clients. You're going to end up doing all-nighters, fixing all the work that they screwed up. It's just, or you'll lose employees who are tired of working with them and covering for their mistakes. So I've failed at this, but it's really important to fire them sooner than later. If you'll find yourself saying, oh, they're like 60% good and only 40% bad, that's a bad employee. Okay, it shouldn't be like that. I don't know what it should be. Was it 85% good, maybe 90% good, 10% bad? I think that might be the line. Okay, so there's that. Also, I think it was the guy who started Uber. I went to a Tony Robbins seminar on business, and this guy said, how do you fix morale or make morale of your company better? What's the best thing you can do? And he said, fire an employee. That's the best thing you can do. And what you do is you fire the weak performers, everybody else is like thrilled. It's crazy. I would never have guessed that. I think it's true. Okay, enough of all that. Jason, that was really good. Thank you so much.